Hello and welcome to another Lord of the Rings Rise to War video. I'm the player who plays as the King Under the Mountain, and today I am going to finally, after I think nearly 2 weeks, be doing a season update review on my current season. We do have timer, we have kind of 6 days left, I guess, with how the timer works, 'cause it's 5 plus a little bit more. Lots of things have gone on. I'm going to try and explain at least some of them. I'm going to go through the map. I'm going to go through a lot of battle reports, actually, because I've changed some gear around. I'm going to talk very briefly about command helms versus attack helms and my own personal experience of doing that, because I've kind of just switched one round, but it's not highly refined, but I'd like to go into that. Obviously, we do have a new commander in game. I will probably very briefly touch on the new commander. I haven't seen anything great from it yet, as you'd expect, because I think there's only 2 people I've seen so far with it at R4 in general. And the result I saw wasn't pretty, to be fair. But we'll kind of just touch on the new commander. We'll touch on the event. We'll touch on all the leaderboards. All the good stuff that we normally do. And then hopefully we will try and get live at some point this weekend. So probably the best place to start in these scenarios is, as always, the leaderboards. So we're going to start there. And at the moment, Digger is back to being King Farmer of Middle-earth. He has taken the throne from Mavius. I am sure Mavius will be looking to get that throne back ASAP. I'm currently at 68. I have not really been pushing farmland for a while. I have 16 open tiles, and I'm pretty happy that I can build enough troops to get by every day. I'm basically just building guardians, trolls, some tier 2 bow knights, and also now some tier 2 rams, generally in the main, and some eagles in the background. But with that kind of level of production, I'm not running out of troops, and I'll go into my barracks afterwards, to be honest. As for the merit boards, which is, I always think, possibly the most important board for most people, it doesn't necessarily mean it is the most important board, because there are lots of things away from merit that work for you, but it is the main contributor to your season points. So Raven, as always, is at the top. He has been phenomenal again this season. However, he's found 7.4 million worth of merit. We have had a busier week in Middle-earth. It's a shame I couldn't show some of the pins from the other day, because they have gone down quite substantially since then. But finally, this server started to heat up a little bit in the last couple of weeks. And you will see that there is now a lot of bear in here, and some lame, and some hunk, and order. And I am currently sat in 11th, really annoyingly. I would like to think I'll try and get, if I really drain my barracks, somewhere near 6 million, probably 5.7, which is quite low by my sort of recent season standards. But then there has been times in this where there have only been 3 kingdoms whereby fights have been pretty sparse. We have had the brunt of the fights for most of the days, as we spoke about previously, but the last couple of weeks that's changed a little bit. As for the Fellowship Affluence rankings, we have Lame at 4.1. We have Hunk at 4.1, who have done well to keep that level of production, actually. We are back at 3.9, Bear at 3.9, Order at 3.7, Gods are at 3.6. So those are the 3 main kingdoms in this server. You do have Nikita at 2 million. I have no idea where they've got that 2 million worth of affluence from, by the way. Hell at 1.9. Food at 1.4, and Gods, the real Gods, at 1.4. Donuts at 1.2. The Demolition Squad with John Taverner is still going strong at 1.1. And then we go into sort of the smaller ones, really. A little bit of youths in there as well when they're a bit bored of their own server, I guess. Season points-wise, we are in 5th, and I'm pretty pleased with that. It shows I do flip tiles as well as just fighting, to be honest, and I will siege, and I will do quite a lot of other stuff, so pleased to be around that top 5 figure in what has been not an active season for me, I would probably say. Or not as active as normal anyway. From there, let's go, and I'll show you the barrack situation, because it's pretty good, really. I am very economical with my barracks, because I do train sort of, lower level troops generally. But in the main, I'm back to nearly full again. And I'll kind of continue to do that, I think, till the end of the season. I do tend to not buy expensive troops at this stage, because when there's this much war around, I'd just like to be involved all day in all the fights. So that's been nice. Let's go and have a look at the map, which has changed, but not changed too much. So The two blue kingdoms. We are the light blue kingdom. This is the Order and Toby kingdom. This is the Gods and Lame kingdom, which, kind of the same colour, but not really. We really should have sorted that out at some stage. Someone should have just broke someone's kingdom just to try and sort that out. But anyway, that's a different story. Then you have Hunk and Bear at the bottom here, which I would say is probably still the largest kingdom. Don't get me wrong, it's not as large as it was because we've regained this sort of land area here. And I'm trying to think how far back my last update was. I think last update we were getting pressed by both Gods, Lame, and... yeah, we definitely were, Hunk and Bear. And I think Bear pretty much owned all this area here. So we actually made a deal with Lame. It's a bit of a nap. We gave a little bit of land back because we were pressing Lame through here, and I think they were also a little bit concerned. We were kind of taking them out a little bit, and we were ignoring Hunk. Hunk and Bear were basically eating us all around here as well. So it wasn't really benefiting any team apart from Hunk and Bear at that stage. And I know they were bored because they weren't fighting anyone as well. So it didn't really benefit anyone. So we made that small deal. This allowed us to sort of press Hunk and Bear back out of this area and gain some ground back in the centre, because another thing that happened to us was Hunk and Bear pretty much cut us from the centre. We lost Karas, so we ended up having to get Karas back. Then from there, I'm trying to think, it's such a long time. So, and then it's kind of turned into the general Spider-Man meme. So Lame seemed to flip-flop from day to day. I will say, and I did say it yesterday to some people of Lame, they've played really well for this last week. And the tactic that they've put in the middle, I'll kind of show the Dol Guldur area afterwards. But at this moment in time, Hunk and Bear do own the ring. Lame have got forts by the ring. They have not built a fell fort, which I think is pretty sensible. So Lame push, it depends on the day, but Lame basically push us from this sort of area here down. Bear and Hunk push us from this south area here into Karas. So we get 2 points from Karas. Hunk were pushing through the middle. There is a crossing in the middle into Karas. That is now owned by Lame, because Lame basically, as we pushed from this side into the Undeeps, Lame also pushed into the Undeeps and then did something really clever. They actually withdrew and hard pushed Dol Guldur and went all the way through to this crossing here. So they wiped the sort of north side of Dol Guldur from Bear and Hunk while they were kind of fighting us here. The other genius behind this play by them meant that reality is now in this sort of southern area here, Bear, Hunk, Toby and Order always have to fight each other for this sort of route in to Dol Guldur. Whereas Lame have kind of got this sort of, they can flip-flop between which team they want to hit. It creates a Spider-Man meme and loads of crying in world chat saying, oh, everyone's hitting me today. Oh, everyone's hitting you today. It's like constant drama and a bit boring, but that's, people for you. So that's kind of the map situation. And some of these pins, even though they're good, so this is kind of 19.7 million. This one is 38.7. There was a pin that combined in Karas, which I think was 60 odd million, with about 18 million deaths, something like that. And that was when all three kingdoms were sort of fighting in the Karas area. So it's been interesting. The last couple of weeks have actually been quite fight heavy, and that's been nice. But if I just kind of zoom in on Dol Guldur, you'll see what I mean. So at this second, you have Lame forts at the north side of Dol Guldur. They own this spring. They haven't built, which I think is really sensible. Otherwise, pretty much the whole server will turn on them, I'd think, at that point. And Hunk still own this sort of southern area here. So it's quite finely balanced with 5 days left, which is quite interesting. And at least it's made this season something, because it was struggling at one stage, which is nice. At that point, that pretty much covers the map. I'm not going to go into Diplo because it is what it is. But I'm just going to show you some gear changes. So what I have done, and I will probably do it from the commander screen instead. So I've finally tested out some sort of helm which has got command for a damage dealer. So instead of using, I was using this with Perseverance, and I had a lot more attack. So I've switched into using this sort of might set, where I've gained some attack back from here, but I've lost some defense. So I could gain some command. And this is only 80 command because it's only 3 refine. What I would like to do, if I could get a better set effect, is probably switch it to the Berserkers, I think it is. Is it the Berserkers? See if I've got it in here. It's in one of these helmets. Probably this one. Chieftain's Gaze, sorry, that's what I'm after. So I probably will switch it to the Chieftain's Gaze at some stage, but really at the moment I've only got Sharp Blade or Agility. So I'm kind of hoping for a different Chieftains because I know this isn't exactly ideal. But my attack's still over 200. I'm still not convinced by Command Helms on DDs. That might be because my gear dictates that I'm not convinced. So I haven't got the Palantir in here, for example, and I haven't got any kind of attack left on my helmet, and I haven't got any kind of defense really anymore on my chest piece. But I am a lot faster, so I am going a little bit earlier in battle, depending on what troops I'm using on Dane, which at times is quite nice. But I'm going to show some battle reports around that. My other option is as well, before, where if I could ever find the helmet anywhere. Got to be down here somewhere. Might be on Aragon? There we go. I have left this one as might, so at some stage in the next couple of days, now that I've kind of looked through these and I'll put a video out with the command helm, I'm going to go back to this Cask of Pride and I'm going to see how I get on. I'm going to see how I get on with Dane then. It's kind of comparing, because I'm going to be fighting the same people without this helm on and see what the difference is. Yes, this sort of damage reduction and this increased damage is nice. I'm just not convinced against the loss in attack that I'm getting. I'm actually gaining too much from it. And reality is with Dane, if I can keep him alive 7 to 8 rounds anyway, which he tends to in my formation, he's going to do enough damage anyway, is kind of my point. So I'm not entirely convinced I need that. My findings, and I will show quite a few battle reports, my findings are that my damage has become flattened. So it's still consistent between sort of 100 to 140 generally with the command helm, but I'm no longer getting the huge spikes. And there's a couple of fights where I'm getting the huge spikes. Apparently hard for me to say, but it's really far sort of far between those spikes. Whereas with the attack helm, I was getting those spikes quite a lot on Dane. So not sure. It might just be my gears dictating that though, because it's not optimal. So I'd like to kind of go back to that at some stage and go for it. I'm not sure how far up these battle reports I'll be able to see, because I am guessing most of these at the top will have timed out, because I kind of started this folder a while ago. So if I just go down, see which one's the first one that comes up. These are all obviously fights that I won that look really good, because that's what I always do. I have lost a lot of fights this season to a lot of people. But I like showing the ones that I win, or at least the interesting ones if I'm going to lose. So this is the first one that I can actually show you. This is when we had a lot more resources, and I've been wanting to try a faster Saruman for a while. I still haven't tried the agility set on him. But with Eagles, unsurprisingly, in an expensive troop comp, Saruman did really well. And to be honest, it kind of just proved I was trying to prove my point on this false meta idea. This is when I still had my old helm on. So I'm still not convinced that if you're having to use tier 4 troops to get your commander to do what you want him to do, you're kind of getting it right, to be honest. But I like this formation from Numenor. What I like about this server is there has been some troop damage around. March Wardens are stupidly hard to kill when they want to be as well, which is really annoying. But yeah, I'm not entirely convinced that I should need to use Eagles to then keep half of them alive. But I did have fun with my Eagles, don't get me wrong. Then we've got, so it'll be from here. This is Golo, I think, and I was okay with this. Golo normally trashes me. I mean, resource-wise, he's absolutely annihilated me, but I was kind of okay with this. Again, the problem sometimes with the expensive units is if a team are under pressure, they switch to Guardians, so they instantly get a counter on you. Kind of not ideal if you're going for that sort of high HP pool, which you get with Eagles and Felbeasts and things like that, but I wasn't convinced by the tier 4. I wasn't feeling completely overpowered just by using tier 4. Don't get me wrong, some of the results I got were nice, but yeah, you know, Saruman definitely did more damage. You would expect so because he survives longer and he has a high HP pool. So, you know, that's just kind of how it works. This was when I think we spent a few days fighting Lame. Some nice merit in some of these fights as well, particularly versus Lame because they do like a tier 4. I got lucky here, I think, really, considering Dane. People still complain about Dane. Still complaining now, saying Bjorn's better. I just think you get the heights with Dane. And this is what I mean about the heights. I get there's a higher HP pool here, but you do get some serious highs with Dane that you don't get with Bjorn. Tarnip's got a really nice formation. Flies around a lot with it as well. So I was pretty pleased with that result. Big resource win, big merit. This was back when, again, we'd got quite a few units. I've still got 1,000 Eagles or so, I think, flying around. The Marissa account's nice. Again, Dane's doing here tier 2 Bow Knights, doing 146k, and Saruman's doing 174 with Eagles. I mean, both phenomenal results for me, but Marissa's formation's nice. Just a quick note on this, actually, because I assume the account name will change next season. This person is no longer actually Marissa, but they are looking for an evil roleplay team. If anyone wants to get in contact with them, they would be very much appreciative. But really nice formation, and I was pretty happy with that. Again, decent Dane damage. Still hadn't changed at this point, so it's quite nice to be able to sort of show you some results of both. A good result versus Morgan. Still haven't changed at this point. I'm still using tier 2 Bow Knights on Dane, 197k damage. Morgan's formation heals really nicely. This the sort of woodcutter or woodman vibe that they all use up there is also pretty cool for the treat formations, because generally you will have a dwarf in the formation. So nice damage. I got out healed by one of Morgan's. I think there was a draw, and should have really been quite far ahead in the draw, but he actually healed to pretty much 100% again. It was wild, so shame I didn't really keep that report. I think that was from before. Rob Dib, the Terrible. Again, really nice formation. Again, I'm using the Eagles. Dame with 160k damage. Still, see, he may die early, but he's still doing enough damage. And to be honest, with the level that I'm at with the people that I'm currently fighting, I'm not going through 2 people anyway, and I'm not going into a second fight all that often. So I was pretty happy with that as a result, to be honest. Again, Saruman's still with Eagles. I was feeling rich at this point and a little bit bored, I'm not going to lie. Decent damage again from everyone. Sefrin's main's a really nice formation. I just can't bring myself to say too much about it being a nice formation when he has a full refine A-gloss. This is a siege commander. Please remember your Z11 Gil is a siege commander. And then, R15 Shadow, Z6 Bjorn, kicking out that whole 81k damage. Thanks for that, Bjorn. So again, nice kind of victory. And we went through this stage, and it was quite nice. And then I actually noted when I did actually change the gear. So we'll see how we feel. So what happened is I changed Sauron's helmet to the casque of Submerged Isles. I'm still annoyed that I must have traded all my casques in at some stage. Really, really annoying. I did switch to a half agility set. That is more to do with the fact that that is the only set that I could make with these two that was kind of feasible for a Sauron. I think my other piece in here is like a power overwhelming, and with him being stun immune, there's not really any point in that. And this led to Dane obviously getting the helmet that I've already shown you, and this kind of half might, half perseverance set. Quite nice. This is the first fight I think I had with it, and Big Daddy's account, it's good. I spent the first couple of days going through this sort of command helm debate where I wasn't entirely infused, and this is what I mean, where Dane's damage got slightly flattened. Saruman still say it stayed pretty high, but Dane's damage did get flattened a little bit. Sauron was still as tanky as ever, so I was okay with that. But again, Benjamin's formation is quite nice. I think he used to be a good size player, because I think he's Gandalf Z as well. Yeah, that's right. And then I think his Bjorn's only R7. But nice fight, that one for me. That was good. I fought the same guy again straight after, and had a very similar result. So there you go. But this time Dane literally walked all over him. So this was with the old. This is why I put this in. See, so this is before I changed my gear. So let's just go back, have a look at both. Now there is going to be some RNG in here. I get that. Dane's obviously died earlier in this fight, but this is with the command helm. Damage is flattened. He's obviously died earlier. He's got guardians. Fine. Interesting. Okay, so that's with the gear change. and this is with my old gear, where Saruman's obviously died a little bit earlier, but Dane has put out a lot more damage using the tier 2 bow knights, again because he's got the counter. So it's hard to compare the two completely, but I do feel I was getting more damage out of Dane by having the attack rather than the command, if I'm being honest. However, most of these fights from now on will be command-based Helms, I would assume. Yep. This was Silent. Silent's a good player. And I really don't like the health bar these days because he does love a March Warden. I don't like the health bar for the simple reason that I don't think I feel like it should turn into a resource bar. That would be nice for me. Because reality is, out of this formation, apart from take out the Eagles, which, fair enough, they're an expensive troop, I've still got a load of my tank left, which is my most expensive unit, really. So, nice to see that. And I found that a lot, to be honest, since I switched my gear. Sauron does tend to last a lot longer, obviously not in this fight, but this is a good one versus Ragnar. I don't think I've beat Ragnar yet, or I might have got close once, but he always seems to have a troop counter on me, or it seems to get madness, which is really irritating. So, nice formation, though. I think we've got an absolute stack of these fights. I'm going to try and go through them as quick as I can because I want to kind of look at the event as well, but lost to Mithrawn here. Mithrawn is a pretty disgusting whale. Probably Kraken-ish, really. Gear's definitely Kraken level. Probably needs a couple of levels. Z15 Gandalf the White. I don't think I've ever seen a Z15 Gandalf the White. And then an R12 Saruman. So I was pretty happy with this. Again, very similar troop comp. Definitely beat me on resource as well, just for the simple fact that he's still got third of his swans left. This is Tarnip's other formation, and again, I was pretty happy with this as well. Dane was 160k damage this time, so fair enough. I did make a couple of small tweaks to my formation in the way it was skilled, which I think then did lead to... I did this, which did lead to a little bit more damage from Dane again. And it was basically taking 5 points in the white and 5 points in the wizard. So I dropped the stun because I found I was only getting kind of one per fight at most, really, depending on how often Gandalf the White got stunned. And I kind of went down the route of trying to strip White Council as fast as I could for Dane in round 3, just so he could then sort of go a bit berserk. The defense drop does help a little bit, but, you know, it is a little bit. But that's kind of what I ended up doing. I've stuck with that, to be honest, because I found it to be pretty good on resource and pretty good on results as well. Another fight versus Morgan. Just about got the better of him in this one. Again, though, reality is my formation is a little bit more expensive, but he has got the unit counter, so this is the problem sometimes when you're a little bit more expensive. That was one of the fights where Dane really did shine, even with the Command Helm. So I've half come around to Command Helm, not completely, mainly because stuff like this happens, and this was nuts. This is the kind of state of play that people were getting into in this server, that you can run this. And I was actually alright with this, to be honest, because X's gear is stupid. I think you'll see a fight from today later on, whereby I did actually, not necessarily beat him, but it was pretty close. I feel like this is a big fall from grace from Blue Eyed. I know he used to be very much known for memes and kind of like GIFs about how fantastic. But I know he kind of stopped. Not necessarily stopped playing, but I know he stopped investing in that account a bit. But I was pretty happy with this, to be honest. Been a long time since I fought him. This is Rob's other formation. Again, really nice formation. Sort of couple refined Gandalf. Yeah, I was pretty happy with that. Again, 144. I found all it's really done is level out my damage, the Command Helm, between Saruman and Dane, if I'm being brutally honest. Hunrin spent a couple of days, I hate to say it, but like avoiding fighting anything but my pathers, so I actually had to really try hard to actually get this fight with him. And I'd switch the tier 2 bow knights onto Saruman at this point. Dane did go heavy on this, but you would expect so when you've got... The great thing is when you've got a counter on 2 of the DDs, with them not being the best for command and defense, you do tend to hit high numbers, which is nice. Then we got Whip. Whip's kind of bounced around. I think Whip was in Bear and Honk, didn't really like what was going on, so moved over to Gods, now flies around everywhere. And it's a nice formation, running Scale Helm, but I was pretty happy here. This is the one time that really and truthfully I felt the damage has been really put out by this. And you kind of expect it when you're facing this kind of HP pool, but this was quite a nice result. And with Saruman dying off, it was up to Dane really. But 231k from someone who's apparently not the best damage dealer in the game, so not a bad effort there. This was Jeff's B team, and again, people have got some serious gear on this server. Z10 Dane in the B team makes me cry. I was really happy with this result. Saruman doing a good job really for me there. But there's no tank in this army, so hard to kind of take that into account really. I was really happy with this. He did blow himself up, but I was really happy with this. Tim's got a good formation, like really solid, really high level commanders. This was probably one of the highlights of what I've managed to achieve. Winning this to sort of 3.5k was really good. This guy is an absolute pain in everyone's ass. Probably one of the best players that I found this season. Always seems to appear in a place that you don't want him to. Particularly when you're clearing forts. He always seems to have a fort that's left over behind everyone else. And he just appears from what feels like nowhere. And just kills whatever you've got around. And this is one of the few times this season where he hasn't actually got any kind of madness proc on me. Because normally what happens against him is... Because I feel I should compete with him, and I think other people also feel like they should compete with him fairly comfortably. But he always seems to get some kind of madness proc or something that kills you off. This is the one fight that I've kind of felt I did really well in against him. Mavius is a bit of a big old dirty whale. And again, I was pretty happy with this. I've beat Mavius a couple of times this season, but it looks like he's kind of... I think he might have switched around. He may have added Bjorn in here. I'm not sure if Bjorn was here to start with. But I was pretty happy with that. He does outgear me quite substantially. He's still skilling, interestingly, his Sauron. I'm still not quite convinced why you wouldn't want the stat reduction to affect 4 formations. I don't know. Just so you can have 5 focus. I've spent all season trying not to say that piece of information, but with 5 days left, Mavius, please put the points in here. Please. Thanks. Shout out to Honk, actually. They've been really good this season, and I've really enjoyed it. Washer has got a sickeningly good ex-Evil Side account. Really, really enjoyable to fight. Really hard work to fight. But again, I was pretty happy with that. Like I say, remember these have got the troop buff from DG as well, which isn't, lots and lots, but it's pretty good. Then we had an even more even fight just after, which was nice. I think, did I change the counter there? Yeah, so I actually put the unit counter in the second one and got a fairly similar result, but still beat me on resource. Saruman went a bit wild in that fight. And then the last one. Sorry, that took forever. Blazing Pandasima. Always in the fight. And it's nice to get this. So again, all these fights have been with the command helm. Dame's damage has been respectable, don't get me wrong. I don't feel it's changed it too much. He does survive a little bit more, but his damage has definitely been flattened. I get a lot more draws now than kind of out-and-out victories. And what I like about this formation is a lot of them have started using the Wozes. I don't know whether anyone's actually looked into Wozes, but Wozes on Bjorn in particular and Dane, quite nice because it makes them act first. So you do get to go first without having to go down the route of agility sets and things like that. And actually their HP and defense pool is actually all right. So Wozes, unit good to look out for, particularly when as well they're also ranged. I mean, you're not taking those normal attacks. So worth looking at Wozes, I think. I'm going to do a little bit of work with Wozes at the end of the season. Not as in I'm going to go and talk to them and say, put some clothes on, but I'm going to actually do a little bit of research around using them in my army. And I think at that point, all I've got left to talk about is the actual event that's on currently. So, let's go. New commander, giant Pokemon, right? But we're going to go into that on a different day. I will very briefly go into it. So it's grey here. I'm not entirely sure my pronunciation is correct. What I will say is this looks pretty cool, the unique flight appearance, but I wouldn't want to invest too much money into something that just shows me a different coloured large eagle on the map when I'm flying, personally. I will go into the skills at some stage. There are some interesting ones. They're mainly all around troop buffing, whether it be attack or defense. For me, it's not ideal because it's mainly around attack of large units, which I'm not entirely convinced anyone's ever told me that large units put out a load of damage. So maybe there is something to do around that. Like I say, I've seen one report at R4 level 40-ish, which was not great. But I do think it's got quite a high command stat. So if I just go to the current chest, which is part of this deal, which I have put 0 coins into, and then kind of, can I just get to the commander from here? There we go. So if I just go to the stats, for example, good high base command. So I would assume, and I will go into it in more detail, with the Wizard's Wing, you would probably get, particularly if you've been really disgusting, for example, and you're using, let's go for trolls and 2 DDs with, say, I don't know, chariots, you are getting a lot from this early. But I'm not saying it's good yet because I think a lot of it is around. It looks like good for stripping White Council, but we'll see how that is. And I think we'll see how that goes. But I know some people have already got them. I know some people have just unlocked the avatar that you get. I am just going to very quickly look at that deal before I go anywhere else. This is actually quite a good deal for the elite one of the Legends of the Skies pass. You do get 2 gold items inside this, which is pretty decent, I would say. They've also released at the same time this kind of Legends of the Skies Maven special offer. They do scale quite nicely as well, so, you know, fair enough. They've tried to kind of get you to invest in this. Some people have literally paid, you know, what is in effect £10 for upgrading this pass by 5 levels, having a lovely background picture, and then looking like a Pokemon in World Chat. For me, that is not quite representative value, but there you go. Then let's have a look at the event very quickly. They do always do something around Easter time, which is quite cool. This is kind of like you have to pick out the 2 things, sort of match them up. One is then just they turn the leaves over and you have to remember which item you're supposed to get. Fairly good for a few gems. You do get some Easter eggs, and they've even done a leaderboard for Easter eggs, whereby this shows you who's online the most. 403 eggs already in the top 10 get this really cool looking kind of speech bubble for 30 days only. So all that effort for 30 days only. For me, all these people should spend more time on the battlefield rather than trying to get Easter eggs, personally. Yeah, they have put a storyline behind it, fine. You, like I say, the pass is here, and it does level up to level 20. You know, fairly standard event from them. Nice to see a new commander in the game. But I don't know, I'm not entirely convinced that we needed another troop buff commander. I still think Evil needed genuine damage dealer commander to compete at the top level, like a genuine tier 3 damage dealer. Physical side rather than just Saruman, which fair enough, and Shadow, but I think they do need a genuine kind of like a Bjorn or like a Dane. And that was that. So we are currently moving towards Dol Guldur. I'm sure we won't get anywhere near there. There are 5 days left. I'm looking forward to the last 5 days and then looking forward to a new season, hopefully soon after. But I will bring another update before the end. Like I say, hoping to get live before the weekend. As always, if in doubt, always follow your nose.